What happens when Hollywood's most beloved nice guy walks onto a talk show stage, only to be blindsided by a host who refuses to let him speak? In just 43 seconds, Whoopi Goldberg went from welcoming guest to furious adversary, setting off a chain of events that would end with security escorting Ryan Reynolds out of the studio in front of a live audience. This is the story of how one interview spiraled completely out of control. The morning started like any other episode of The View. The studio audience filed in, cameras were positioned, and the panel took their seats. Whoopi Goldberg sat in her usual spot at the center of the table, flanked by Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin. The energy was light, the audience excited. Ryan Reynolds was scheduled to discuss his latest film project, a feel-good comedy that had been getting positive buzz. When Ryan walked out onto the stage, the audience erupted in applause. He waved, flashed his signature, smile, and made his way to the guest chair. He shook hands with each of the hosts, exchanging pleasantries and jokes. Everything seemed perfectly normal. "Welcome, welcome," Whoopi said, gesturing for him to sit down. "We're so happy to have you here." "Thanks for having me," Ryan replied, settling into his chair. "I've been looking forward to this." The interview began smoothly enough. Sarah Haynes asked about his family, and Ryan gave a charming answer about his kids. Joy Behar made a joke about his relationship with Blake Lively, and Ryan played along with good humor. The audience laughed. The vibe was warm. Then Whoopi leaned forward. "So, Ryan," she began, her tone shifting slightly, "I want to talk about something that's been on my mind. You've made a lot of money in Hollywood. A lot of money. And I can't help but notice that you don't seem to take any of this seriously." Ryan's smile faltered for just a moment. He looked confused. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" he asked. "I mean," Whoopi continued, her voice growing sharper, "you make these silly little movies, these comedies, and you just joke around all the time. Do you ever think about using your platform for something meaningful? Something that actually matters?" The audience went quiet. The other hosts exchanged glances. Ryan shifted in his seat, clearly caught off guard. "Well, I think entertainment matters," Ryan said carefully. "I think making people laugh, giving them a break from the stress of their lives, that's valuable. That's meaningful to me." Whoopi waved her hand dismissively. "Please," she said. "You're telling me that making another superhero movie is meaningful? That's what you think matters?" Sunny Hostin jumped in, trying to smooth things over. "I think what Whoopi is trying to say," Sunny began, "is that there's a conversation to be had about the kinds of stories Hollywood tells. And..." But Whoopi cut her off. "No, that's not what I'm saying at all," Whoopi snapped. "I'm saying that he has all this privilege, all this opportunity, and he wastes it on nonsense." Ryan's jaw tightened. He took a breath, clearly trying to maintain his composure. "With all due respect," Ryan said, his voice steady but firm, "I don't think it's fair to call my work nonsense. I've worked really hard on every project I've done. And yes, a lot of them are comedies, but that doesn't make them worthless." "Hard work?" Whoopi scoffed. "You think you know hard work? Let me tell you about hard work. Hard work is what I did coming up in this industry. Hard work is fighting for every role, every opportunity, when nobody wanted to give you a chance. What you do. That's not hard work. That's cashing checks." The audience gasped. Alyssa Farah Griffin looked shocked. Joy Behar's mouth hung open. Ryan sat up straighter in his chair. "I never claimed to have had the same struggles you had," Ryan said, his voice growing firmer. "I've always acknowledged my privilege, but that doesn't mean I haven't worked hard, and it certainly doesn't give you the right to dismiss everything I've done." Whoopi leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "Oh, here we go," she said. "The white man is offended. Tell me, Ryan, when have you ever been told you couldn't do something? When have you ever been denied an opportunity because of who you are?" "That's not the point," Ryan replied. "The point is..." "The point," Whoopi interrupted, her voice rising, is that you waltz into this industry, everything handed to you on a silver platter, and you want me to sit here and pat you on the back for making movies about superheroes and spandex? Sarah Haynes tried to intervene. Okay, maybe we should take a step back here, Sarah said, her voice nervous. I think we're getting a little heated, and... Stay out of this, Sarah, Whoopi said, not even looking at her. Her eyes were locked on Ryan. Ryan leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Look, he said, I came here to talk about my movie. I came here to have a conversation. But if you just want to attack me, if you've already decided that nothing I say matters because of what I look like or how much money I make, then maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe you shouldn't, Whoopi shot back. The studio fell silent. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The cameras kept rolling. The audience sat frozen in their seats. Joy Behar finally spoke up. Whoopi, come on, Joy said softly. This is getting out of hand. Whoopi turned to Joy, her expression fierce. Don't tell me it's getting out of hand, Whoopi said. I'm tired of pretending like these people are doing something special. I'm tired of acting like we should be grateful they showed up. Ryan stood up. These people? He repeated. Wow. Okay, I think I'm done here. Sit down, Whoopi commanded. We're not finished. Actually, Ryan said, his voice calm, but with an edge to it. We are. I'm not going to sit here and be talked to like this. I don't care who you are. Whoopi stood up now too, her hands flat on the table. Who I am, she said, her voice loud. I'm someone who's earned the right to say whatever I want. I've been in this business longer than you've been alive. I've won awards you'll never even be nominated for. And I'm telling you that you need to sit down and listen. No, Ryan said simply. I don't. Sunny Hostin stood up, trying to physically position herself between them. Okay, everybody. Let's just take a breath, Sunny said, her voice urgent. Ryan, please, just sit back down. Whoopi, let's reset. We can start over. But Whoopi wasn't having it. Why should we start over? Whoopi demanded. So he can sit here and talk about how great he is? So he can promote his little movie? No, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of watching mediocre men get praised for doing the bare minimum. Mediocre? Ryan said, his voice rising for the first time. You don't even know me. You don't know what I've been through, what I've overcome, what I care about. You've decided all of that based on assumptions. I know enough, Whoopi said. Alyssa Farah Griffin stood up now, her voice shaking. This is wrong, Alyssa said. Whoopi, you invited him here. You can't just ambush him like this. It's not fair. Whoopi whipped around to face Alyssa. Excuse me, Whoopi said. Are you really going to lecture me right now? I'm not lecturing you, Alyssa said. But someone needs to say something. This isn't okay. The audience began murmuring. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. The producers in the control room were scrambling, trying to figure out whether to cut to commercial. Ryan picked up his microphone pack and started to remove it. What are you doing? Whoopi asked. I'm leaving, Ryan said calmly. This was supposed to be an interview. This turned into an interrogation, and I don't have to sit here and take it. You walk out that door, Whoopi said, pointing toward the exit, and you prove everything I just said about you. You prove that you can't handle real conversation. You prove that you're weak. Ryan stopped. He turned back to face Whoopi, his expression serious. No, he said quietly. Walking out proves that I have enough self-respect to remove myself from a toxic situation. It proves that I won't let someone bully me on national television just because they think their status gives them that right. And it proves that I know the difference between a real conversation and whatever this is. Joy Behar stood up, her voice pleading. Ryan, please don't go, Joy said. Whoopi, please, apologize. This has gone too far. I'm not apologizing for anything, Whoopi said defiantly. Ryan finished removing his microphone and set it on the chair. Then I guess we're done here, he said. He turned and started walking toward the exit. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or stay silent. Most stayed silent, watching in disbelief. Whoopi called after him. "That's right! Run away!" she shouted. "Just like I knew you would!" Ryan stopped at the edge of the stage. For a moment, it looked like he might turn around. But he didn't. He just shook his head and kept walking. Sarah Haynes had tears in her eyes. "I can't believe this just happened," she said quietly to Sonny. As Ryan disappeared backstage, 2 security guards appeared, clearly sent by the producers. They approached Whoopi, speaking to her in low tones. She argued with them, insisting she hadn't done anything wrong, that Ryan was the one who walked out. The other hosts sat back down, looking shell-shocked. The audience was completely silent now, unsure of what to do or say. Joy leaned over to Whoopi. "You need to calm down," Joy said firmly. "Don't tell me to calm down," Whoopi snapped back. The security guards continued trying to speak with Whoopi, but she waved them off. She sat back down in her chair, her arms crossed, her expression defiant. In the control room, the producers made the call to cut to commercial. The red lights on the cameras turned off. The studio speakers announced a break, but the damage was done. Backstage, Ryan was already being ushered out of the building by studio staff. He looked exhausted, frustrated, but also relieved. He had stood his ground. He had refused to be disrespected. Several staff members apologized to him as he made his way to the exit. He thanked them graciously, even managing a small smile. Despite everything that had just happened, he maintained his composure. Back on the stage, the other hosts huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. They looked concerned, upset, and confused. This was not how the show was supposed to go. This was not what anyone had expected. Whoopi sat alone at her spot at the table, staring straight ahead. She didn't join the other hosts. She didn't seem to care that they were upset. When the commercial break ended, the show came back on air. Whoopi addressed the camera directly. "Our guest had to leave early," she said curtly. "We'll be right back." No explanation, no acknowledgement of what had just transpired. Just a cold, dismissive statement. The other hosts looked at each other, but said nothing. They knew that anything they said at this point would only make things worse. The rest of the show continued, but the energy was completely different. The hosts seemed distracted, uncomfortable. The audience remained unusually quiet. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something unprecedented. Joy tried to lighten the mood with a joke during the next segment, but it fell flat. Sonny discussed a news story, but her delivery lacked its usual passion. Sarah and Alyssa barely spoke at all. Whoopi, meanwhile, acted as if nothing had happened. She transitioned between segments, made her usual comments, and carried on with the show. But there was a tension in her voice, a defensiveness that hadn't been there before. The audience could feel it. The viewers at home could feel it. Something fundamental had shifted. When the show finally ended and the cameras stopped rolling, the hosts remained seated for a moment. Nobody spoke. The silence was deafening. Finally, Joy broke it. "That was bad," she said simply. "That was really bad," Sarah echoed. Sonny turned to Whoopi. "What were you thinking?" Sonny asked, her voice a mixture of concern and frustration. Whoopi stood up, gathering her notes. "I was thinking," she said, "that I'm tired of playing nice with people who don't deserve it." "He didn't do anything wrong," Alyssa said. "He was just here to promote his movie." "He represents everything that's wrong with this industry," Whoopi replied. "That's not fair," Joy said. "You don't even know him." "I know enough," Whoopi repeated, the same line she had used during the confrontation. She walked off the stage without another word, leaving the other hosts sitting there, stunned. Meanwhile, Ryan had already left the building. He sat in the back of a car, finally allowing himself to process what had just happened. His phone was already blowing up with messages from his team, from friends, from family members who had been watching. He typed out a quick message to his wife, Blake, letting her know he was okay. She responded immediately with support and love. Ryan looked out the window at the city passing by. He had been ambushed. He had been attacked for no reason. But he had also stood up for himself. He had refused to accept being treated poorly. Back at the studio, the producers were in full crisis mode. They gathered in a conference room, reviewing footage, discussing next steps, trying to figure out how to handle the fallout. The other hosts met separately, talking among themselves about what they had witnessed. They were angry, confused, and worried about the show's reputation. "I've never seen her like that," Sarah said. "She was out of line," Joy agreed. "Completely out of line." "We should have done more," Sunny said. "We should have stopped it sooner." "How?" Alyssa asked. "She wouldn't listen to any of us." The conversation continued, but there were no easy answers. They had all been put in an impossible position. In her dressing room, Whoopi sat alone. She wasn't watching the footage. She wasn't reading the messages from the producers. She was simply sitting in silence, convinced she had been right, convinced she had done nothing wrong. The reality was setting in for everyone else, though. This wasn't just a heated interview. This wasn't just a disagreement. This was a complete breakdown of professional conduct. This was a host attacking a guest, unprovoked and relentlessly. And it had all been captured on camera for the world to see. Ryan, for his part, wanted to move on. He didn't want to dwell on what had happened. He didn't want to give it more energy than it deserved. He had a movie to promote, a family to get home to, a life to live. But he also knew that what had happened mattered. It mattered because it showed that standing up for yourself is important, even when the person attacking you has power and status. It mattered because it demonstrated that being famous doesn't mean you have to accept being treated poorly. The car pulled up to Ryan's hotel. He thanked the driver and stepped out onto the sidewalk. The afternoon sun was bright. The city was bustling with people going about their lives, completely unaware of the drama that had just unfolded in a television studio across town. Ryan took a deep breath and walked into the hotel lobby. He was done with the view. He was done with that chapter of his day. What he didn't know was that the footage was already spreading. Clips were being shared online. People were talking about it on social media. The story was taking on a life of its own. Back at the studio, the producers finally made their way to Whoopi's dressing room. They knocked on the door. She let them in. The conversation that followed was tense. They explained that what had happened was unacceptable. They told her that Ryan had every right to leave. They made it clear that this couldn't happen again. Whoopi listened, but her expression remained defiant. She believed she had been justified. She believed she had been speaking truth to power. The producers left her dressing room feeling frustrated and concerned. This was going to be a problem. A big problem. The other hosts had already left the building by this point, each going their separate ways, each processing the events in their own way. Joy called her family, venting about what she had witnessed. Sunny met with her team to discuss how to address it publicly. Sarah texted her friends, still in shock. Alyssa wrote notes to herself, trying to make sense of it all. As the day turned to evening, the full scope of what had happened became clearer. This wasn't going to blow over. This wasn't going to be forgotten by tomorrow. Ryan sat in his hotel room, finally having a moment to himself. He ordered room service, turned on a movie, and tried to relax. But his mind kept replaying the confrontation. He thought about Whoopi's words. He thought about how quickly the situation had escalated. He thought about the moment he had decided to leave. He didn't regret it. Not for a second. Because at the end of the day, he had been ambushed by someone who had decided to use her platform to tear him down, rather than have a genuine conversation. And he had refused to participate in that. The television in his hotel room flickered with images and sounds, but Ryan wasn't really watching. He was thinking about tomorrow, about the next interview, about moving forward. He knew that this moment would be talked about. He knew that people would have opinions, but he also knew that he had handled it with dignity and grace, and that was enough.